Back in September of 2014, when I had started my first blog, a movie was released based on an old television series from the 1980s. The movie was called The Equalizer, and starred Denzel Washington as a retired spy turned vigilante named Robert McCall, a part originally portrayed by Edward Woodward. I wrote a review for the film on my blog, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, else I'd leave the web address it was featured in the information below. Long story short, though, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that while feeling very much like an episode to the original series. Actually, more like quite a few episodes of the original series combined into one. I also enjoyed the differences made with the original character. It really seemed that Denzel Washington took the role and made it his own. I mean, some differences did bug me, but they were so few and far between, and besides, it really seemed like he captured the heart and soul of the main character, and that it really felt no different from the original series. Now that being said, I was totally surprised when I heard earlier this year that a sequel was being made. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the 2014 film, and it seemed to have done really well, and there were discussions of a sequel in the works. But it didn't really seem like the sort of movie that would get a sequel. I mean, think of the film adaptation to A-Team. It's good as a standalone movie, it's an origin story, and it does leave plenty of room for a sequel, but it's not likely. Or the film adaptation to Super Mario Bros. Sure, it has a cult following, and it does end on a cliffhanger, but even prior to the deaths of two of the main leads, you'd have been totally surprised if they hadn't made a sequel. But lo and behold, a sequel to The Equalizer was made. Denzel Washington returns to his role as Robert McCall, aka The Equalizer, apparently having left the hardware store business and taking on a job as a driver for a fictional Uber-style company called Lyft, but also moonlighting as a vigilante using his skills as a former spy to help out people in need. When he discovers that his former boss, Susan Plummer, portrayed by Melissa Leo, reprising her role from the first film, was murdered while investigating an alleged murder-suicide of another former spy, he sets out to discover who is targeting his old associates. The upsides to this movie? As before, Denzel Washington's portrayal of Robert McCall, a trained killer with a very high morale code trying to atone for his past sins by helping out others. I mean, let's face it. This guy showed up and portrayed a hero when there were more anti-heroes in pop culture at the time. And he could be considered an anti-hero himself of sorts, but he has that knight in shining armor aspect about him, which kind of puts him above others in that trope. It's kind of refreshing to see a character like him, trying to stand on a high pedestal of morals despite his dark and mysterious past, and attempting to inspire the good in those around him. The action sequences were also very exciting to watch. They returned to McCall's use of a stopwatch, which just to time how long it takes to take out the bad guys, which was a concept introduced in the first film, and is just as much fun to watch in this one. The suspense scenes are also very well directed. In fact, there are a few where director Antoine Fuqua seems to be totally messing with our minds and must be enjoying every second of it. For example, I recall a scene where the camera is just following a character down a corridor, and you're just expecting, even anticipating, a villain to pop up and take someone by surprise. I mean, it's good lighting, dark mood, and an eerie musical score that just suggests it. But it never happens. I gotta say, an excellent job was done in that aspect. The downsides? Kind of the mystery of the movie. It's fun to watch Robert McCall investigate, but you could see the resolution coming from a mile away. I mean, the minute you see this character, you just know he is the one responsible. At least they knew that, though, and had gotten it out of the way as quickly as possible, but still, I was hoping to be surprised. Also, I think I would have enjoyed the film more if it focused more on Robert McCall taking on a client. He kind of does so at the beginning of the film with him trying to retrieve a kidnapped girl, but it starts while he's in the middle of it. It doesn't really start with him being approached by someone asking for his help and him agreeing to take the case. After all, that's how it was done in the TV series, and now that we've gotten the origin story of this franchise out of the way, it would have been nice to see that. considering how well they followed the style of the original show despite the liberties that were taken. It's just that the last movie ended with him responding to a call for help, and instead of picking up with him taking on a client as a vigilante detective, we're treated to a conspiracy thriller which is, sad to say, predictable. All in all, would I recommend this movie? Not really. Nothing against the cast or the direction for that matter. Denzel Washington was as enjoyable to watch in this as he was in the first film. But it wasn't at all what I was anticipating. However, do I hope that they make another sequel? Absolutely! As long as they keep making these movies and as long as Denzel keeps returning to portray the lead character, I'm going to keep watching. Sure, this was a weak entry to what I'm hoping is to become a series, but we also forgave so many others for that as well. Die Hard, Mission Impossible, both with bad second entries, and then the third film came out, which pretty much made up for the both cases. Of course, perhaps they should have ended on the third films. Hey, if you enjoyed this entry, click like and subscribe to view more later. I'm Mike, and this has been a Penguins Rock production.